welcome back to the channel. Wanted to talk to you guys a little bit today about something that I think is widely misunderstood, and how we can maybe as homeowners go about better understanding some of the systems. I'm always learning. Don't take this as me saying I know everything that there is to know about all of these things. But coming from a remodel perspective, what I did for about a decade, and things that I've learned that's helped me better wrap my head around some of these systems and what's going on with your house. I try to help educate people as much as I possibly can. I've got a lot of friends, family, people that I know that own homes that, you know, might be a female, might be a guy, that this stuff is so confusing to a lot of people, and everybody owns a home or owns something that they're going to probably have to work on like this at some point, or you're going to have to hire it out or pay for some service to come in and do some of these repairs on your home for you. But doing it, like I said, for about a decade, and of course I did it before that as well. I grew up around this type of stuff with our dad, you know, usually being the person that took care of things around the house, and you know, just always kind of being more, I guess, on the hands-on side of things. But owning a home and then doing it for a living in remodel work, this was something that we were always dealing with, always trying to reroute, make something better, address an issue, whatever it is. So basically what I want to discuss in today's video, it's a video I've had the idea of for a while to just try to set down. There's probably other information out there, I'm sure, on a lot of these things that you can listen to. Different, I know there's channels that specialize in specifically in plumbing or electric or whatever it is, but I like to on my channel discuss all things that interest me. That's why I named the channel Home Built. It's more anything that really relates to me as far as working with my hands, whether that's taking care of one of our vehicles, to something on the house, to landscape, whatever it is. And so it's a video, like I said, I've had the idea to discuss for a while, because again, it's just something that I think a lot of people struggle with, understanding the concepts of what's going on in their home. So that's the basis for this video. It's basically understanding the plumbing systems that you're going to run into in pretty much anyone's home. I don't know of any other type of system that you would address, unless maybe you live in another country and it's just not something that's common here in the States. So I guess basically start with talking about what types of materials you're potentially going to see in your home. I've never seen any different than this. I'm trying to think, there might be one other type of plumbing, but it's going to probably be more on the mobile home side, in that realm. But what I've got here is going to basically still cover that information. So I'll quit kind of leading into what we're going to discuss and start kind of breaking some of these things down. I mean, I'm sure most people are, if you do any of your own repair work at your home, you're going to be familiar with what some of these materials are. But I think I've said it in other videos, specifically when I'm reworking showers and different plumbing. I think as much as understanding how to make the repair on plumbing, it's as much about understanding the materials and the parts and things that you're going to need to buy to make that repair. The repairs are generally pretty easy. They're pretty self-explanatory. There is things that you can mess up on, but I think a lot of the hurdle, I see it in Home Depot all of the time. I typically wind up helping somebody in the aisle that might be a homeowner, and they ask me, do you do construction work? Are you in this industry? Yes. And I wind up helping them just as a store associate's going to help you, because it's just so commonly misunderstood, I think, on what do I need to buy to address the repair and to make the repair. So, commonly, I would say most houses in the United States, sorry, it's a little cold in the garage here today. Most commonly, I'd say in most homes in the United States, they're going to have some sort of a type of copper tubing. Now, this isn't the exact copper tubing you're going to see. You're going to see probably 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch. But I got this piece of copper in the garage just for demonstration purposes, so that you kind of understand what we're looking at. I think everybody understands copper tubing. It's this is a piece that I had laying around that is the actual diameter, the size of 1/2 inch copper piping that will be in most people's homes. It's just one of probably the most tried and true plumbing systems that we have in most places. You're definitely going to see it in most commercial applications, but copper tubing's probably on the top of the list as far as common. Now, coming up, that's probably getting to the point that it is becoming the most commonly thing seen, especially in new construction, is going to be a type of PEX tubing. Again, these things get confusing because there's so many different materials that I think people have a really hard time wrapping their head around all these different materials. They're all basically just doing the exact same thing, but you're looking at the progression over the years of these materials coming about and them being used. And so because they're still out there and they still exist, you get more and more and more things that you have to accommodate to as the years go by. So there's more systems to work between to achieve the same goal. And still sometimes there are different materials even still used today. A specific set of plans or an architect or a builder might only want to use copper. Some might only want to use PEX. Some might only want to use CPVC. Those are probably the most common things that you see today. But PEX, again, I think it's a little misunderstood because there's different types of PEX tubing. They come in different colors. As far as I understand, the colors don't mean any difference of the tubing. They are just used to designate and more clearly visually label the plumbing that there is. So in every home, you're going to obviously have supply plumbing that comes in from the meter, and that's feeding the basic water to the entire house, structure, business, whatever it is. And then from there, it usually all of the features in the house that have cold water, that main will split off and feed all of those cold features. And then it goes to the water heater, or it might go to the water heater first. It just depends on how it's plumbed. And then the water heater comes off with all of your hot functions. So that's the reason that I think that they use different colored tubings. It's just to make it visually easier to see for the plumber, for the homeowner, whatever, what's happening in the house and what particular plumbing is what. So that's where the different colors come in. Other than that, I really don't know of any differences in PEX tubing. PEX basically superseded your PVC and CPVC types of tubing. It's still a poly type of tubing. The difference that PEX makes in new home applications, it's able to be pressurized quite a bit higher. It's very resistant to freezing, and it's flexible. So you can probably easily understand the advantages to having a tubing that's able to be bent and to do different things within your house rather than a rigid pipe. So those are probably the two most common things that you would see in a home today, is going to be a type of PEX or a type of copper. Moving down from there, the tubing that I've probably seen third most common, that I'm not a fan of really at all, is what they call CPVC tubing. CPVC tubing and PVC tubing, most people have heard of PVC. You've probably heard of CPVC also. There's only two differences between a PVC pipe and a CPVC pipe, and CPVC is chlorinated. I believe I looked it up here not too long ago. PVC means polychlorinated vinyl tubing. Polyvinyl chlorinated tubing. Yes, polyvinyl chlorinated tubing. CPVC means chlorinated polyvinyl tubing, or polyvinyl chloride tubing. So why would they do that? What is the difference? The difference of chlorinated PVC and non-chlorinated PVC is this is designed for potable water uses. So the reason that they do that is because water that comes through water treatment plants is heavily chlorinated. Chlorine will eventually eat standard PVC type of piping, or that's my understanding of it, that chlorine eventually starts to break down regular PVC tubing. And also chlorinated PVC or CPVC is more resistant to temperature, so it's more usable with your hot water runs and things like that. So again, this is a lot of information. It's even difficult for me to sit down and to try to think of everything that I want to convey to you all, not have an entire list of things written out. I want to not make this overly complicated as much as physically possible, because I don't think it's extremely complicated. It's just a lot to kind of wrap your head around understanding. The other type of piping, again, I just touched on it basically, is you will see some PVC in home use, but it's generally only used in the times that I've seen it in conjunction with the feed in from the meter. I don't know, because I did read about that, and chlorinated PVC and non-chlorinated PVC, how they're able to do that coming from a meter base, but I have seen it. Again, I don't know all of the science behind that, I guess, if you will, as to why it is used in some applications for supply plumbing in homes. Now this entire video is going to be mostly an overview of what we're going to see in what I'm going to call supply plumbing of the house. So that's water being fed to the house and to the fixtures to make things work, like toilets, sinks, and things like that. I want to do another video and discuss drain plumbing and the effects of, you know, what can we see there, or not effects of, but I guess you know, the common things you're going to see and how to make repairs in drain plumbing. This is going to be more geared towards strictly supply plumbing. So you can look for that video to be coming up before too long. These are some things I grabbed at Home Depot today to basically I keep a fair amount of plumbing stuff, but I grabbed a couple things for demonstration purposes today. Along the lines of what I had just hit on with drain plumbing, that's something that if you are using PVC plumbing in your home and you're making a repair, there are different types of PVC. Some will have DWV written on the pipe, and then others will say that they're rated for pressure. This PVC actually says that it's rated for pressure up to 600 psi, and it gives you all the specs on the pipe. If it's only rated for drain piping, which is generally what you're going to see in most drain applications, is a type of PVC pipe, it will say DWV, and that means drain, waste, and vent. So it is not meant to be pressurized, and that can easily be overlooked when making repairs on your house. I've done it. I know plenty of people that's done it when you're trying to buy fittings and different pipes, and it's an easy thing to miss. But I'll kind of back off on that. We'll just kind of stay the course on talking about supply plumbing for today. So really the only other type of plumbing that I have seen in a home, and it's pretty uncommon, but I know that it's more or less used in different areas. So some areas, not, you know, here where we live, it might be a more commonly used type of plumbing, but again, they all pretty much work exactly the same. When you're making repairs, or maybe you're trying to update the plumbing in the home, you're really just trying to figure out what is the best way to attack and to get rid of the problematic plumbing that I have, so that I can get back up and going and reduce, you know, headaches or failures in the future. So the only other thing I've really seen is galvanized pipe, and it's pretty uncommon. You don't see a lot of it, at least in the Kentucky, Indiana, you know, Ohio area. I don't see a ton of galvanized supply plumbing. You do see it more on the drain side in older homes, but I don't see a lot of it in supply plumbing, but I have ran across it. So it's just, you know, typically what you would think of when you think of like a steel tubing. It's just not large like you typically see in drain applications. It's going to be a smaller type of tubing, 1/2 inch, 3/4, something like that. And it's just supplying water instead of draining it away. So those are pretty much, I would say, what most people are going to run into in making a repair in your home, or updating a bathroom, or you know, you have a leak in your crawl space or basement, whatever. So that's one hurdle, I think, is trying to understand what kind of piping do I have, and how can I go about making a repair. A lot of times when I was making repairs, I would convert the plumbing over. Depends on what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. Again, I'm trying to think about this and keep it as chronologically in order as possible. I've worked off of writing down lists before, but sometimes I feel like it's a little too structured, and I don't wind up getting all of the information in that I want to get in if I don't think about it while I'm writing it down. I can miss it either way, but you know, I just think that understanding the type of tubing that you have, and then what do I need to get to make that repair, that's probably the two biggest hurdles in making a plumbing repair on your home. It's again, you'll figure it out as you go, and then you want to talk to someone at the repair or home store, whatever it is. I guess it's so much preference in how you want to go about repairing it, whatever it is, that I've seen tons of different ways that people repair things. A lot of times it's not the way that I would do it. Maybe sometimes the way that I do it's not the way that somebody else would do it, and so on and so on. But I think there's a handful of right ways to approach this, and I want to kind of keep everybody on that approach side of it. So like what I was saying, a lot of times if there's an issue, I would convert over the plumbing. What that basically means is, depending on what was there and what we were doing and what needed to be addressed or removed or repaired, would kind of dictate how much I changed, took out, replaced, etc. So a lot of times, typically what I ran into was CPVC and copper tubing. When we would update a bathroom, many times I would convert all of the plumbing in the bathroom over to PEX piping. One, it was easier to work with. It's the fittings and everything for it are much quicker, much more time efficient, more cost efficient. So those were the reasons we converted it over. And also too, if the piping that was feeding that particular room and we were remodeling it, if I eliminated anything that was potentially old, I knew everything was up to date, and I knew that any particular problem that we may be called on after that room was done, it was on me, because I had changed every piece of pipe in that room. Again, that might not be how somebody else wants to address a repair. And we might just be talking about a small pipe leak in your crawl space or your basement. So that may or may not be applied in your particular circumstance. I'm just trying to give you some information to make the best judgment call on what it is that you've got to address, repair, or whatever it is on your house. But that's the times that I would maybe think about converting the piping or whatever it is over. Hopefully this makes sense. Again, it is a lot of information, but I'm trying to think how we want to address going from here. So let's just say you have one of these types of tubing. What do we need to do to repair it? So if it's a type of copper tubing, you're going to be able to sweat that piping, which is, most people are not comfortable with sweating copper plumbing. Most people are going to look towards something what is called a shark bite or a compression style fitting, and that's going to be something like a shark bite or a push type of fitting. There's different companies out there that make these, but what the general idea is that they push onto the plumbing, and it kind of works like a finger trap style. Once it's pushed in, it cannot come back off, and there's no ring in there, and it seals. But these are interesting because they can work between different types of plumbing. I'll get into that in a second. So that's one option. You could address it with either, that's really probably the only options when it comes to copper plumbing, is you're either going to use some type of a shark bite and convert it over to, say you have a repair and you want to cut out a section, you might put a shark bite in, put some PEX piping in, and then put another shark bite in. Again, here's where we get into a back and forth of people do different things to make different repairs. Why would you want to change out the piece of copper with a piece of PEX? It's easier to work with than trying to get a whole nother hard piece of copper in there, because I can put this fitting on, I can bend this pipe some to get it to do what I need it to do. So that's generally why you see sections cut out and replaced with PEX. And like I said, we'll kind of get to that in a minute, how shark bites work between different types of tubing. So if you have a copper problem in your house, a leaking fitting, whatever it is, you need to change something, that's going to be pretty much your only two options. When you walk into the home improvement store, you're gonna need to get some type of a compression fitting, like a shark bite, or you're going to solder and sweat that plumbing, which again, most people will not do. That's basically taking and cleaning the pipe using what they call a flux paste, which cleans the pipe, a type of lead or silver based solder, and then a torch. I used to do that quite a bit in converting over to PEX and different things. And again, we can kind of talk about that as I go along. But that's not going to be probably in most people's wheelhouses for a repair. So I'm trying to kind of stick with what most homeowners are going to probably do to address a problem. So moving on from there, what we've talked about with the PEX tubing, if you need to make a repair in your home and you have modern piping like PEX, obviously a lot of times you're going to see shark bites used. I don't typically like using shark bites. One, they are a costly fitting. They're not very inexpensive. And two, there are what they consider a mechanical connection. This can be released with a release tool or a type of crescent wrench. You can take shark bite fittings back apart. So I would typically use a fitting that was able to be crimped, and that would make a permanent connection. So there's a couple different types of bands or rings that they make that go over your particular type of tubing, and then the fittings would go into them, and then you'll use a special type of crimping or clamping device that sets this ring and makes a hard connection with the plumbing. So that pretty much addresses how you're going to approach repairing PEX plumbing. Moving from there to CPVC plumbing, I always would convert over CPVC plumbing in a bathroom. Again, I'm not a huge fan of it because it tends to get brittle over time. Why? I don't really know. But it does not take a lot of force. It has some flex to it also, but as it gets older and over time, and I guess the water being in it and different stuff, I've seen this stuff where it wouldn't flex much at all, and it would just shatter when you did flex it. Or if it was sticking out of the wall and you bumped it, it would snap off really easily. So there's a couple ways to get away from CPVC if you need to make a repair. Obviously, if you just have a bad fitting or something like that on the piping and you need to make a repair on CPVC, the ways that they go about repairing CPVC piping is it's going to be a type of glue and a type of cleaner. So you would buy a glue and a cleaner that is designed to work for CPVC piping. And then you would buy a fitting that this piping pushes into, whether you need a T or you just need a coupling, and you cut this pipe and you push it back together and then you glue it. Or it can be converted over to PEX piping, just like we were talking about with the copper, through a specialized fitting. Actually, this is one of the specialized fittings that I would use whenever we converted them over. And again, it glues on to this, and then you would use a type of, well, where did I set it? You would use a type of fitting that works for SharkBite or works for PEX piping, I'm sorry, and you would thread it into it and then use your PEX piping. Oh, I had it in the end of it. That's where it went. So it pushes into it, and then all of these fittings would get taped and pipe dope, and then your rings and everything like that. But again, a lot of this information I feel comes down to knowing the materials and what you're going to need to address the piping in your house. The best way that I could maybe simplify this down for someone is maybe not worry about, watch the video and take what you want from it, but maybe just worry about understanding the type of pipe that you've assessed is in your home, how you go about repairing that type of piping, and then if you need to or want to convert it over to PEX piping, then do a little bit of understanding or research on, or watch the part of the video where I'm discussing PEX piping and how you go about changing it or adding on to it. So that's going to be basically how you're going to address CPVC pipe, is to cut it and glue a fitting into it, or convert it over to PEX piping as well, just like with the copper piping. There are different types of glue, so here comes more information. There are different types of glue that work for PVC or CPVC. I'm sorry, there's too many different types of piping we're trying to discuss. They make a standard setting cement. You will be able to ask the person at the department store or home improvement store what maybe you need for your application. I'll touch on them a little bit so that you understand them, but there's basically going to be a standard type of cleaner and glue, and that's how either PVC or CPVC is going to be addressed. It's cut, the fitting that you're using, the pipe is cleaned with a type of cleaner, and then it's glued with the proper type of cement. There are a couple different types of cement. If the repair that you're making needs to be back up and going because it's an issue, let's say you have appliances full of water at your home, or it's an emergency, whatever it is, they make different types of glue for different types of circumstances. So they have a standard setting glue that has its whole own dry time and cure time, and then they have some fast setting glue that again, is more of an accelerated time frame that you're going to make that repair in. A lot of times when we were doing people's homes and bathrooms, I would have to use an accelerated cement because let's say they were at work, or they were home through the day, which was even worse, and they were trying to run a load of laundry and this and that, or use the restroom, or whatever the case was, and I cut the house water down and was trying to get the bathroom converted over and get all of my plumbing addressed. I would use a fast setting cement, so that way I could get everything done, the piping glued, and get the water back on in the house as soon as possible, so that they could continue to do what they needed to do within the home. I won't really go into too much more detail about glues. Again, they make different ones for different types of pipes and different speed and cure times and things like that. There are ones that work specifically with PVC. There are ones that work specifically with CPVC. You just need to make sure that when you're buying this stuff, it's all designed to work with what materials you have in your home and what you're potentially changing to or repairing. So that should give you enough information to kind of wrap your head around what you're going to do to make that repair with whatever that piping is or looks like that's in your house. We can maybe touch on that a little bit more here again in a minute, and kind of go over some of that a little bit more as I kind of start to wrap up and discuss what the last thing or last couple things. But if you've got a type of threaded plumbing like galvanized, something like that, you're going to basically have to get another piece of pipe that either fits back in there and threads onto wherever the problem is. Threaded plumbing is really difficult to get things changed and repaired without converting the pipe in some way. So I don't know how much more I could maybe clarify that, other than you're just going to have to find what it is that you need for your particular application, or convert it over, which is going to be the easiest thing you can probably do, and convert over from your threaded steel piping to a PEX, which is going to it's going to make the repair process a whole lot easier and get you back up and running a lot faster. That would be my recommendation for most homeowners, would be to just convert over from it, cut out or take out the affected section, go back to where you have a threaded section or a threaded connection, cut or unthread that pipe, and then convert it to PEX piping. That's going to be probably the easiest thing that you can do. What that basically looks like, again, all of these things, all of these systems sound different, but somewhat worked together in many ways. This isn't a piece of galvanized pipe, but it is a piece of threaded pipe. It's going to look and function very similarly to what your supplied plumbing is. So I grabbed this kind of just for demonstration purposes. If you have a problem on your threaded plumbing and you need to convert over to PEX pipe, let's say, you'll hear me refer back to PEX on almost all of these applications, because it is the most universal thing to convert back over to. In none of these applications would I convert from any of these other materials to one of these materials that's not PEX. If that's clear, if I said that correctly. I wouldn't take copper, PVC, CPVC, or galvanized and convert it away from any one of these materials to any other thing but PEX. That's what I would do. Some people might do differently. That's up to you, and you're making your own judgment call on how you want to go about repairing it. But you'll generally hear me always refer back to PEX piping, because it's going to be the easiest thing to convert the plumbing over to make that repair or remodel or whatever that looks like. So like I was saying, for demonstration purposes, I have a piece of 1/2 inch threaded pipe here. If this was my problem area, I had cut a piece of pipe out, I had unthreaded at a connection here, and I wanted to change or to make that repair on my house, you can get, I mean, I've just bought this. This is a 2-foot piece. So let's say you had a problem here and you had a threaded fitting here and a threaded fitting here. You could cut that pipe out, unthread it, and do exactly what I'm talking about right now. They make fittings, 4-PEX, that thread on to different fittings, and this generally works with all of these other materials. So I said, even though they sound different, they all kind of work together. So I could get a fitting that was specifically made for PEX, but it threads and converts me to another type of plumbing so that I can make that repair. Again, you could stick to any one of these materials and not convert to PEX, but this is probably going to be the easiest route for most homeowners to make a repair on their home themselves. So that's why I'm referring to it. And also, a lot of these old homes, these systems that are probably in your house that are any one of these 4, in a lot of cases are going to be failing. PEX is what is going to be probably the common type of plumbing material used in our lifetime. So like the house here that you all, if you keep up with the channel, that you've seen us remodel here, I converted every bit of the plumbing in this house over to this piping here. Because of function, ease to work with. I know what I have in the house here now. Cost, efficiency, all the other things that I've listed above. It's been around long enough. I believe it's proven itself. It's very resistant to some good things that we have here in our area. Like we just a couple weeks ago got out of a sub-zero temperature conditions, and I was not worried about the plumbing in our house whatsoever because I know this piping's in it, and I know how it can deal with freezing temperatures. So again, that's just my take on it. You will have plumbers that want you to stick with or stay with another one of these types of materials. That's why I said there's so many different ways that this can be looked at, and not necessarily, and what I'm telling you is what maybe somebody else would want to make a repair as. This is just trying to help get homeowners to wrap their head around the different types of materials that are in your home so that you can make a repair or renovate a small area or room in your home with the least amount of headaches. And so that you're not going into the home store trying to think about or understand these things and someone's explaining them to you. It can kind of maybe start to make a little more sense to you. So again, like I said, you can thread it over and it converts just the same as like I showed you with the other types of piping, and then you can be back up and going. I think I just showed you on the CPVC, it's a similar thing. You can get a type of glue fitting. Let's say you had a threaded fitting on the end of this PVC, then you can get yourself a female, what did I do? You can get yourself a female PEX fitting that will thread onto the CPVC, and now you can move the other direction. They also, you heard me talk about earlier SharkBite fittings, which are a easier type of push connection, and they make all of these as well in different types of fittings that thread on. So you male threads, female threads, different sizes, 3/4, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, whatever it is that you've got, that you can adapt from your type of plumbing to what you want to go to or to repair that plumbing. Trying to think where I'm at. So I did talk about, I guess it's probably the best place to go with the video, is I talked about SharkBite fittings and what they do and why they're so universally used and why they're probably the most common thing that you're going to see used in homeowner repairs. What they are able to do is convert between different types of piping. So there is some debate out there. A lot of people don't like SharkBites because they are a mechanical fitting. They do what they're designed to do. I've had very few, if any, real problems out of compression push fittings like SharkBite's. They do a good job, but like I said, they tend to be more expensive. So if you're doing a lot of them or a big room, probably not the most cost-effective way to go. It's probably one of the fastest, but the cost difference it's going to add up fairly quickly. I don't even know what a standard coupling is up to now, but I think the last time I looked, they were pushing $15 for one fitting. Whereas, you know, you can buy a standard crimp tube style fitting for maybe $1 or less. So there's a drastic difference in cost. So sometimes it's more, sometimes it makes more sense to invest into a tool or something. And if you're going to do many fittings and use a cheaper type of way of adjoining the piping. So do with that with, you know, what you will, or whatever you think's best for your application. But that's typically how I tend to address it, is through a crimp style fitting. I like the fitting better. I think it's better over the long term, and again, it's more cost effective. Just everything in general, to me, I believe it's a better way of connecting the piping. But again, do with that what you will, and what makes the most sense to you. But again, why these are so popular, this is 1/2 inch CPVC piping. The fitting can be pushed on. It's fully on there. I could pressurize this, it will not leak. You can then take PVC or PEX piping, it will push in, and now you have a connection. You've now converted this piece of pipe from chlorinated polyvinyl over to PEX. It will not work with PVC piping. So just keep that in mind. It only works with CPVC piping, and it will also work with copper. I believe if I have a pair of pliers, I can get this back apart. I didn't bring a fitting. Again, like I said, these are able to be taken back apart. They make a tool that releases this, that you don't have to use a pair of pliers and potentially damage it, but it is able to be taken back apart. And here's a piece of 1/2 inch copper tubing, and again, it pushes in and locks in just the same. So if you had copper piping in the house, and maybe you had even some CPVC in the house, this fitting will work between those two types of piping without glue, without solder, and that type of stuff. So they are very popular when it comes to those type of things. Trying to think what else I wanted to address with you guys on understanding the types of supply plumbing that you have in your home. Trying to think what else it is that I wanted to discuss. I've talked about in the past, if you have a problem, specifically I've talked a lot about Delta shower valves and making repairs on shower valves. This could also be applied to a toilet, something in the crawl space, you know, maybe a dishwasher, a sink. It could be used in a lot of different areas. I was trying to explain to somebody, if they damaged something in their home, trying to make a repair, or let's say change a shower valve or something like that. If you had to cut into the wall, like tear out some drywall to get to a pipe, it really, I mean, it sounds bad, it sounds complicated. A lot of people will shut the water off to their house and wait for a plumber to get there when they have a water leak. Maybe that is a holiday weekend and you're going to have to pay either some really outrageous rate, or there's no one to come and to assist you. And let's say you have a party scheduled and you can't get someone to your house to help you make a repair on a pipe. and you have a specific fixture leaking, but you need to get the water back up or going in the house. Well, I had talked about, so just like the SharkBite fittings, they make a lot of different types of SharkBite or push connect type of fittings. I had talked to the point in the past on specifically shower valves, but this could be used in various applications in the house. Say you had a bad fixture and you needed to just cut this pipe off and cap it so that you could turn the water back on to the house. They make push-on fittings that will stop. So as long as you know that if the fixture was over here, let's say the shower was this end of the pipe was heading this way, and this is where the water was coming from, or coming to the fixture from that part of the house, and you needed to make that repair, well, you can cut this piping. So they make different tools that you can cut the pipe with. You can use a saw, you can use a pair of cutters, but you could cut that pipe. I'm going to drop my fitting, but you could cut that pipe, get yourself a push-on fitting that is basically just a stop or cap that you could then take and push on to this pipe, and now you can go back and turn the water onto your house, check this fitting to make sure that it's not leaking, and you're back up and going, and you're not waiting on a plumber to make an emergency call to your house, so that you could continue on with what you needed to do in your house. So I think that if you're going to own a home, knowing these things are very important, so that you're not at the mercy of a repairman, or potentially getting gouged by a repairman, or an emergency call to your house. And it's good information. It's understanding the things that are working in your home so that you can address those things, save yourself some money, feel as though you have a bit of a knowledge and understanding of how your home works. To me, some people don't have that drive or have that want to know how some of this stuff works on their home. To me, it's always been really interesting. I enjoy it, and it makes me feel a bit more independent, that I'm not relying on someone else to have to come into my home, that I have to now pay money that maybe I don't have to address some of these things. So that's where the idea for this video came from. Again, I hope that all this was clear. It's really difficult to try to pack all of that information into one video. Also, again, maybe I could have jotted some of this down and tried to structure it a bit more. I tried to kind of keep it as in order as possible, but again, I didn't want it to come out so militant or structured on paper, and I was just hitting specific talking points and not really kind of thinking about it all like I do when I'm on a job. So again, hopefully I'll see when I watch the video back if it kind of made the point that I wanted it to make. Hopefully it does. These are some things that I want to do more as I continue making videos for the channel, and to basically help homeowners to understand what is going on in their house so that they can find problems, address problems, not be at the mercy of some type of repair service or something. So again, hopefully these things help. That's my intent with making these types of videos. If there's something I missed, don't hesitate, drop me a comment down below and I will address it as soon as I possibly can. If there's something that I see that I missed when I watch the video back, I can make a second video and try to maybe address it if there's some things I left out. That commonly happens on the videos, and you're going back through it and you're kind of, oh, I forgot to mention this, forgot to mention this. So I also, like I had stated in the beginning of the video, I want to address different types of things going on in the home. This one is basically centered around supply plumbing and how water gets into the house. But I also wanted to make a video addressing drain plumbing, how water gets out of the house, and how to go about repairing different types of drain piping. And And again, this isn't everything to possibly know about these systems. This is more of a crash course, if you will, or a basic entering into understanding the different types of systems and how things can work together and how you can use different types of pipe in conjunction with one another to make a repair. So I don't recall telling you all about this fitting. This is a type of sweat-on fitting. I don't know what I did. It's the other fittings here. That is a type of PEX fitting also that sweats onto the pipe. And that's what I used to use to make a lot of my repairs, that you would clean the piping, put it on, sweat it, and then it would allow you to crimp and convert to PEX. And that's how I did most of my PEX to copper conversions. Just something that, again, like I said, I may have missed a talking point or two, but it's more about starting to open up your mind, to wrap your mind around some of these things so you can make a repair in your home if necessary. And you know, maybe you don't have any of these things going on in your house today where you might not need to know this, but you might tomorrow or a week from now or whatever, because it doesn't really matter how new or how old some of these things. I've made plenty of repairs on PEX piping on a house that's maybe just a year or two old. When the plumber put this in, they had too much flex on the pipe. There's too much bind on this fitting here, and this starts to drip. And so I need to come in, make a cut, repair it, and do that. So it's, again, this isn't just really applying to old homes. It could be any age of home at any point in time. So hopefully this helps you all. Again, if there's something I missed, feel free, drop me a comment down below. I'll be happy to answer those questions. And you know, I hope to do more of these in the future, because I feel like these are things that we can kind of go over and go over and go over, and there's different things. This stuff in these industries are always changing and making different things to make our lives a little bit easier on how to make repairs. So hopefully it helped you out. We always appreciate you tuning into the channel. We look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care and have a good day.